Championship Racing are once again here at SARCO, proudly brought to you by Thrustmaster. We are in round 6. It is the final round of this Formula C Championship. We head to the Circuit of the Americas on the national track. Sit back and enjoy the highlights of the two 12-lap races, with both of these races being determined by a 5-minute qualifying. Sit back and enjoy. So let's have a look at the starting lineup for this race number 1. Unfortunately, we lose some guys due to the public holiday, and we combine our lobbies 1 and 2 to have 15 that join us here on the starting lineup. In 15th place is Colin from Dakel Racing, and he's just behind his teammate Dane in 14th place. 13th is Shake and Bakes Ronaldo. He's just behind his teammate Stephen, who qualifies in 12th place. In 11th place is Hugh. He's just behind the Greek international Memo driving for the Chasing Beavers. In 9th place is Jacques for TTR Racing, and he's just behind the green number of Andrew in 8th place. 7th place is the Project Cat Racing's Ross having come off a win in our GT3 class. He now finds himself 7th, and he's just behind the second TTR driver Duppy currently in 6th place. Dylan starts off in 5th, just behind his teammate Jakes in 4th position, and Bruno for the Silverback Racing, he finds himself in 3rd place behind his teammate Marius for Silverback Racing. And in pole position it is Scholl for Tosca 1, leading us in race number 1. As we wait for the green lights, the cars are just sinking. It's green lights and away we go. All the drivers heading down the main straight, approaching this very tricky uphill section here into turn number 1. You can see the spray coming off the back of the cars. Everyone seems to be clear coming through turn 1. Oh, there's a little bit of contact in the background there. That looks like a shake and bake and a green number in contact there. So Charles leads the pack coming through the first couple of tight corners that we here in the national track, which means we actually cut out turns 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. So the leader is currently Charles. Marius Jakes, he moves himself up into 3rd ahead of Bruno as they come into the very tricky turn number 12. And we see the two TTR drivers there just behind. We jump on board with Duppy as he comes through turn number 13 and through 14. Well, a little tag on the back there of Bruno. Not quite sure what happened there. Dylan gets himself right up behind, but he puts the power on. Unfortunately, he spins himself around. So he will unfortunately rejoin this race in 15th place. But it seems like Marius has taken a little bit of damage after a little contact from the back of Jakes. We'll just stay here with Duppy to see if Marius just peels away to go into the pits. No, he decides to stay with the damage. Duppy looking for a little inside there. The race leader Scholz crosses the start-finish line to begin lap number 2. We'll just jump to look at the positions after this first lap. So Charles leads with Jakes in 2nd. Bruno, he's in 3rd place with Marius in 4th. Getting lots of pressure by Duppy and by Jacques. Ronaldo, he's up into 7th place, having started 13th on the grid. Hugh, he too is up with Stephen. He's also up. Stephen started at 12th. He finds himself 9. Colin, he's into 10th place with Dylan starting to find his way back up the field in 11th place with his cousin Memo down in 12th, Dane in 13th, Ross down in 14th place, and Andrew in 15th. We see Marius starting to drop down the order. Just want to see what happened there. Looks like he might have gone off. Oh, Hughes run himself a little bit wide coming out of turn number 9. That's allowed Stephen to move to the inside. That's Dylan approaching Colin, or moves to the inside, but it just allows enough space there for Colin to go past around the outside as they head to turn number 13. Dylan looks to the inside, but not enough space there. It allows Colin to go by once again. Into the very tight turn number 16. Well, Stephen's running very wide. There's Colin right up against him. The two of them touch. That's into the wall. Both of them go. Unfortunately, both of them have lost wheels. There comes Dane around the outside. So nearing the end of lap number 2. This is Bruno currently in a 3rd place, being very much hunted down by Duppy. Will he take a move here going into turn number 1? No, Bruno closes the door. It looked like Duppy, it did just slow down a little bit there. But Bruno's definitely fighting to get Duppy away from him. The TTR drivers really have come out of their shells this championship. They really are commanding the respect of the other drivers. Exiting out of turn number 9, then to this very tricky turn 12. And I'm sure you're wondering why I went from 9 to 12, and that's purely because we are at the national track, and with the little infield section we add on 3 corners, but we lose a total of 6. So we jump a little bit further down the field. That is Dylan currently in 7th place, trying to close down the Ronaldo. Well, Ronaldo hits the outside curb and that pulls him wide. That makes it a very easy overtake for Dylan. Dylan moves himself up into a 6th place. So we jump on board with Jacques from TTR. Just ahead of him is Duppy. Duppy chasing down Bruno. Whoa, that was very close there. I thought Duppy might have got a little bit close and actually touched Bruno, but it seemed that there was no contact in that move. But Bruno definitely battling to keep these TTR drivers away. So Charles, our race leader, will cross the line to begin a lap number 5, and we'll go for a little tour. First corner down to 1st gear, power on, allowing the car to go wide. Move over to the left, tight line into a 2nd corner. You want to get to the middle of the track into 3, gear down into 4, gear down into 5. Then a touch of the brakes, turn in 3rd gear, back on the power, hit the little curb, a brake, down into 2nd. Out of turn number 9. There's a very tight turn number 12, down into a 1st gear, power on as soon as possible, keeping the wheels spinning and trying not to spin them out on this wet track. Through turn 13, that was 14, then here into a 15, a very sharp turn and number 16. Stay in the middle of the track, wait for a late apex, a turn in turn 17, move inside to turn 18, wait for the white patch, turn in 3rd gear, exit out of a 19, just before the white line, a brake, a down to 2nd gear, a late apex, a power on. And across the line to begin a lap number 6. So the battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th is still very heated despite the rain. So I think between Duppy battling with Bruno, that's allowed Jacques to close that gap ever so slightly. But he's definitely going to make himself known here. You can see the 2 different lines from both those drivers. Bruno seemed to have got a much better exit than Duppy, and Jacques, he was able to close that gap between himself and his teammate. And unfortunately we miss out having the Tosco 2 drivers this evening, Louis and Gerard, due to having already made plans before this race was confirmed. So we don't have these black and blue with the yellow trim this evening. That is Hugh currently in 8th place. Just behind him is Ross, the Project Cat racer. We've just seen Ronaldo go past at the bottom of the screen. Well, on the brakes, Hugh's gotten himself a little bit wide onto the grass, but that is not close enough to allow Ross to make a move yet. Let's just see if he's able to hold himself coming through turn number 20. I think Ross got a much better drive there. Will Ross slip in behind him, get that slipstream advantage? Can start seeing Ross closing the gap. Will he move to the inside? Yes, he does. Will he be close enough to make a move? No, he has not. So Hughes managed to fend off that attack from Ross for this stage. We'll come back and see what happens a little bit later. Jakes for the Black Mambas. He's currently sitting in 2nd place. Hasn't had too much challenge from behind just yet with that battle between Bruno, Duppy and Jacques. But unfortunately he is about 2 seconds away from our race leader. There he is there. So both Charles and Jakes having a very quiet race. So that is a Duppy crossing the line at the bottom of the screen. That was Bruno. Bruno for the Silverback Racing is holding out these two TTR drivers. Well, a little oversteer there for Duppy coming into that braking zone. So while we can't see in the actual replay that there is rain falling, there is definitely a light rain still happening. But you can still see the spray coming off the track, making these conditions very tricky. You are able to see that all the cars have wet tires fitted, but we are in a standard setup, so you're not able to tweak the car to your preference. So Ross is starting to put pressure here on Hugh in the closing laps of this race. Hugh tightens up, goes defensive. Ross looks like he got a good line coming out of turn number 9. That has moved himself up. He's spun the rear. That's allowed Hugh to take that place back from him. So Ross, having unfortunately lost the rear, now has to dig deep once again and find himself back past Hugh. We'll just hang on here to see whether he has an opportunity. Well, big power slide there by Ross coming through turn number 16. Hugh's gone tight, Ross has gone wide. Will he have a look here into turn 19? No, he's not close enough to make the attack, but Hughes run wide. Ross tightens up. I think the move will be on here coming into turn 20. No. Yes, Ross moves to the inside. Great move there, but I don't think he's got the drive to actually make that move stick. So he'll have to tuck in behind Hugh once again. Get the toe up the hill here into this unsighted turn number 1. Hugh runs wide, Ross tightens up, but Hugh will have the faster outside line. He now is on the inside. Ross will have to go the long way round, but Hugh backs off, allows Ross to go through. So the third place driver, Bruno, as you can see, he's starting to just open the gap there between himself and the two TTR drivers. Bruno is currently in a third place. So he will cross the line to begin a lap number 10. So currently the 12th place driver, Memo, here is circulating. Whoa, big power slide there coming into turn number 6 up against the wall. He manages to stay off the other wall and manages to keep his front cone on. We have already had 3 retirements in this race already, having lost Marius, Colin and Andrew. So in shot, our race leader Charles will come through turn number 20 for the last time in this race. Charles will cross the line, having led from pole position on the grid. He will finish in first with Jakes in second. Bruno finish a very respectable third, having fended off the attacks from Duppy and Jacques. Dylan will come home in 6th place with Ronaldo in 7th place. Ross will finish 8th. Hugh in 9th place with Dane in 10th. Stephen will finish in 11th with Memo in 12th place. And unfortunately Marius, Colin and Andrew, all 3 retiring. So now we head to race number 2, the final race for this championship. Sit back and enjoy. As we wait for the green lights for this final lap, that's Duppy's got a great start off the line. Oh, little spin there for Memo. Well, there's Stephen in the background. He too is spinning off the line. Jake's moving to the inside, but Charles beat him too. More contact between Charles and Marius. Well, that's Duppy. Bruno's now stuck. There's Ross in the background. He's away. Dylan is in 2nd place. That is Hugh in 3rd. Duppy 4th. That is Stephen. Whoa, big slide there by Duppy without a rear wing. Sorry, my apologies. That is actually Hugh up into 5th place after that first corner incident. So Ross leads, Dylan's in 2nd, Ronaldo's in 3rd, Bruno 4th, Hugh 5th, Memo in 6th place with Dane in 7th, Jake's down in 8th, Morris is 9th, Stephen in 10th place, Duppy 11th, Jacques in 12th place, and unfortunately Charles retiring after that incident. So race leader Ross has the Black Mamba Dylan hot on his heels as they are going through turns 17 and 18. We chase Bruno coming out of turn number 16. Just in front of him, that is Ronaldo. Well, Ronaldo going a little bit wide coming into the entrance for turn number 18. Bruno, the tighter inside line, makes it quite an easy overtake in the end. So Bruno will now move himself up into 3rd place. Ronaldo now drops down to 4th. So just about side by side into turn 1, the race leader Ross has a Dylan right up behind him in 2nd place. Through these very tricky S corners, coming out of turn number 5 into turn 6 through the little chicane 7 and 8. Hard on the brakes, turn that nose in, get the power on, try to stay off that curb or else it does slow you down. Dylan is closing that gap on Ross through the tight turn number 13. Then here into this tricky 15 and 16. Ross goes a little bit wide, puts himself on the curb. That allows Dylan to get right up behind him. Just about side by side through 17 and 18. Dylan sucks on and goes to the inside. Ross runs wide. Dylan sees Ross coming, quickly changes direction. He unfortunately will run a little bit wide, but he will take the lead coming into turn number 20. But Dylan has gone too hot. That's allowed Ross to get the better drive. Ross crosses the line to begin a lap number 3, still leading this race. 3rd place driver, that was Bruno with Ronaldo in 4th. Through turn number 2, you can still see lots of spray on this track as it is still raining here at the Circuit of Americas the national track. Ross seems a little bit slow coming out of turn number 9. Let's see how Dylan just closed that gap up. Will he have a look here? No, he doesn't. Turn number 12 is not the place to do it. Through turn number 13 and 14. Big power slide there by Dylan, but that helps him set up for turn 15. Ross has gone wide once again. Dylan is holding his line this time, but doesn't get right up behind him. Will he have a look around Ross around the outside of turn and number 17? He does. He's made that move stick. So Dylan now exits out of turn number 18 as the new race leader. So third place driver Bruno is starting to close that gap on Ross. Ross currently in a second place. I do want to keep the action here and then just bring up the positions. So Dylan leads with Ross in second. Bruno is 0.64. Ross went a little bit wide. That's going to make it very easy for Bruno to get around the outside. So Bruno moves himself up into second place. Ross is down to third. Ronaldo is fourth. Marius moving himself up the field. Oh, big power slide there in the background. We saw Ronaldo. So now Marius moves himself into fourth place. Ronaldo is fifth. Memo is sixth. Hugh, he's in seventh place with Dane in eighth. Jakes in a ninth place, but you can see 41 seconds behind, meaning that he has taken a pit. Jacques is in 10th. He too having needed a pit. Dupi taking pits, as well as Stephen taking a pit. So in shot is currently the battle for a second, a third, fourth, and Ronaldo in fifth. That is Marius, the second of the two. Oh, that is Ross now out of this contention for this race. In shot, we're just watching Ross rejoin the track just in front of him. That is Memo. As they come through turn 2, setting up for turn 3. Gear down into 4. Well, that looked like it was very sideways. Well, Ross has put the power on, coming off the curb. Oh, we have a stop TTO driver. He just edges forward to not get hit. Ross now rejoining. So Ross haven't lost the place after having gone off there. But we see in the background there's Hugh now closing that gap here on Ross. And if he's not careful, then he goes off once again. He's going to have the likes of Hugh and Dane right up behind him. So we jump on board with Dane. He closing down here on Hugh. Just in front of him is Ross. Dane driving for Daycall Racing. Unfortunately, his partner Colin having had a power outage and not able to join in the second race. You can see the spray coming off still on parts of this track. Hugh went a little bit wide going into turn 1. That's going to allow Dane to close the gap up on him. Will it be able to gain some extra seconds coming through the S section here through turn 2? That's a good wide line there, but you should have been a little bit tighter up there, Dane. You see now you're going to have to slow down, turn this car back in, and compromise the exit out of turn 5. That's 7 and 8 looking very good. Oh, Hughes off the track there. We'll have a look on the inside here. Turn number 12. No, not enough space. Staying cautious not to get too much power down and lose that grip. A very wide entry there for Dane. I think that just wants to tighten up coming through turn 14. So Hughes gone wide. Dane will have the drive coming out of turn number 16. Will he have enough speed to go around the outside here and turn 17 and 18? Oh, unfortunately, Dane runs himself a little bit wide. That's going to allow Hugh just to open that gap once again. Currently in a second and third place is the two silverback drivers. That is a Bruno currently in screen, running a little bit wide coming out of turn 13. Morris had to go a little bit wider as well, but he tightens up coming through 15. Well, Bruno's wide going into 16. Will that allow Morris through the inside? Yes, it does. So Bruno, unfortunately, now dropping down into second place after running a little bit wide into turn 16. Morris looking very neat and tidy through 17 and 18. You can see Morris has already started to pull a little gap over his teammate here halfway through this race. The race leader Dylan goes into turn number 1. We bring up the current positions. Dylan leads with Morris in a second place, with Bruno in third. Shake and Bakes Ronaldo, he's in a fourth place with Chasing Beavers. Memo in fifth. Ross Project Cat Racing, he's in a sixth place with Hugh in seventh. Dane Dakel Racing, he's in eighth place with Jakes from the Black Mambas in ninth. The two TTR drivers, Dupi and Jacques, are in 10th and 11th respectively. And Stephen down in 12th place is the last person circulating the track, with Charles having retired after the turn 1 incident. The fourth place driver, Ronaldo, he comes into turn number 1. Ronaldo managed to go around all the carnage on lap number 1, has really put himself into a great position. Just at the top of the screen we saw that was a Memo. He's currently in 5th place. Really great result for these two drivers. We jump further down the field and we're starting to get a little battle between Dane and Hugh. The two drivers coming into the S's now, going into turn number 6. That is Jakes in the background there. Sure, Jakes will want to get into the action, start having a race with these two guys. Dane will move to the inside. No, he just puts his nose in turn number 12, but allows Hugh to go through safely. But Dane is definitely starting to put pressure here on Hugh. Hugh starting to make a few little mistakes. But as I say that, it looks like Hugh managed to get quite a good exit out of turn number 13. Through turns number 17 and turns number 18. Will Jakes have a look to the inside? Yes, he does. So next on Jakes' list is Hugh, with Dane having let Jakes by. That's allowed Hugh to open up a gap. So Dane will have to put his head down and fight to get some of this places back. Will Jakes be able to go around the outside here, turn number 1? Hugh goes very slowly, almost brake checking Jakes, but I don't think that was intentional. Jakes having a little look into turn number 3, but there wasn't any opportunity there. Jakes will tighten up, go through the inside, turn number 4. And there's Dane is still in the fight. Oh, Hugh's gone a little bit too deep into turn number 6, but he'll shut that door on Dane coming through turn 7 and 8. Dane tightens his lineup, tucks in behind Hugh coming into the hard 12. Has Hugh carried too much speed? We'll just have to wait for the other camera view. There's a Dane right behind him. Hugh's gone a little bit slow out of that corner. There's a Dane right up behind him once again. Hugh fighting very hard with a Dane here. Great racing, even though it is in the middle of the field. These guys are still fighting at it, which is exactly what we want here at SARCO. Another man fighting very hard is currently Marius. He's been working his way through the field after the first lap incident. He unfortunately was just clipped, spun around by Charles. He did rejoin the track near the bottom of the order and has fought his way through. Had a little battle with his teammate to fight for second place, and now he's currently 3 laps to go and hunting down Dylan. 5 seconds is the gap with only 3 laps to go. Two laps to go. There in front of Marius is the current race leader. Dylan driving a very controlled race. Marius really pushing hard to try and close that gap. Morris coming through turns 17 and 18. Into turn number 19. These two, Dane and Hugh, are still at it. 0.4 is the gap with 1 more lap to go after this one. Hugh is still leading this charge, currently sitting in 7th place with Dane in 8th. For a moment there I thought that Hugh might have run himself a little bit wide. It's just the way the car had changed tones. I think he had just coasted through. Dane to getting a very tight exit onto turn 18. Well, that was very close. He's run himself a little bit wide coming into turn 19. This will be his last chance to get a good run up on Hugh here up to the start finish line. He'll have 1 more lap to make this move. Looks like Hugh will go very defensive coming into turn 1. Will Dane be able to go around the outside? So unfortunately he is not being able to make that move just yet. So the race leader Dylan, he will come into turn number 20 for the very last time. Just behind him, in 1 second behind, is Marius. So Dylan, he will cross the line to win with Marius in 2nd place. Bruno will come home in 3rd once again. Ronaldo, a great result for him in 4th. Memo, a great result for him in 5th place. Ross will finish in 6th place with Jakes in 7th. Hugh will finish ahead of Dane. Hugh in 8th place, Dane in 9th. Duppy in 10th place with Stephen in 11th. Jacques in 12th and Charles down in 13th position, having retired on lap number 1. Thank you guys, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, give this video a like, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to hit the notification button so you'll be notified when we have a new highlight reel or a live event gone up. Don't forget to check out our other races in this championship, and this will now conclude this championship, proudly brought to you by Thrustmaster. We will have our new seasons up and running in the next 2 weeks, but till then don't forget to keep popping in, because we will have a few fun events here and there, and we'll catch you on the track soon. Thanks for watching.